In today's lecture, we're going to be creating a stone brick pattern. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to do is I want to use my ruler to divide my paper up into each individual brick. So I'm just going to go ahead and lay down my ruler like so. And I'm just going to draw lines across like this. And I'm just going to about eyeball the same distance for each one. So then I'll come down about the same distance. I'm not too worried about it being perfect because in this study, we're just trying to understand texture through highlights and values. All right, great. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw off the ends of these so I have a box to draw within. So something like that should be good. So we're going to be creating our brick within here. Now, the next thing to note is that when you're creating texture, it's very important to look at reference. So you can go on Google and search for whatever type of reference you want, and then look at that reference and study the way it works. Look at where the highlights are and where the shadows are, because overall, that's what's going to make your texture. So looking at some reference of some brick, the first thing I notice is that it's broken up into individual bricks. So I need to start adding those lines in, like so I know where each individual brick is. The next thing I'm noticing is that then some bricks are really random. So I notice that there's some square bricks like so. And I also notice that none of the lines ever line up with another line. So they're always broken up like so. Then I might add in another one right there, and then another one here. And then I'll try another square one right there. And then I'll add another piece right there. And then I'm going to start copying this pattern up here, because I know that I won't line up with any lines if I do that, except for this one. So I need to change that one up to a square. All right, perfect. So now I have my layout for my bricks. The next thing I'm noticing is that the space in between each brick is darker than the brick itself. So now what I can do is I can go ahead and darken in those areas like so I can start getting a base value for all of my bricks and the space between them. All right, great. The next thing I'm noticing is that each brick has a different value. So some of them are lighter and some of them are darker. So I'm going to go ahead and break these bricks up into 3 different values: a darker value, a mid value, and a lighter value, which I'll leave white. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my darkest value, and I'll just start to sketch in that value onto some random bricks. So I might add a darker value on this one too, and maybe a darker one right here. And I'll just continue to do this all the way down. Then I'll go ahead and fill in my lighter value on some of these. So I'll add in a lighter value one right here. I'll add one in right there. And I might even add in a second one right next to it because we want this to be random as possible. All right. Great. So now we have the basic layout for our brick texture. The next thing we need to do is we need to start going in there with some real detail and some real highlight and shadows. So I'm going to switch over to a more sharpened pencil. And what I want to do first is I want to start adding in my shadow coming from my brick. So each one of these bricks are sitting within their own space and they're pushed out a little bit further than the space in between them. So that's causing a shadow underneath each one. So the shadow kind of looks like so. It's a cast shadow that's being cast underneath each one of my bricks. And then I'm noticing that the light appears to be coming more from this direction, so I'm going to go ahead and add in a shadow on that side. And then I want to go ahead and slowly fade that in so it's not such a hard line. And then I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of my bricks. Alright, so now I've added in all of those cast shadows underneath my bricks and on the left side of each brick. The next thing I want to do is I want to start adding in some texturing detail in there, which is going to be some darker shadows, and then after that I can go ahead and add in my midtone, and then I can leave out all my highlights, and that will really make it pop. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing in some of the texture I see in my reference, and so it's just very sort of random shapes in the brick. Now a lot of these bricks were made by hand or put into really crude molds, and so there's going to be a lot of texture on them, which is really nice for what we're trying to do. Alright, great. So now we finished all of that dark shadowing texture. The next thing we want to do is we want to add in another layer of shadow onto each one of these bricks, but what we want to do is we want to leave out the space underneath each one of these for highlight. We also want to leave out the top edge on this brick for highlight, because since the light is coming from this angle, it's going to be getting hit with light on that side. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me show you what I mean before we get started. So basically, we want to go ahead and add in a mid-tone shadow like so, all the way up to the dark texture we have here. But then on this underside, we want to leave out a good space for a highlight, like so. Let's try another one. So we bring the shadow right up to that edge of our dark texture, and then we're going to leave out a space underneath that for a white highlight. We'll do the same thing for this one. And then let's not forget to leave a white highlight on the top of this brick. So we'll go ahead and fill right up to this line about there. We can even add a little bit darker of an edge right there. Same with underneath each one of these highlights. That way they stand out just a little bit more. Alright, so now that really gives us some more three-dimensional looks to our brick. Let's go ahead and apply this to all of our bricks. Alright, great. So now we just added in that mid-tone and also added in our highlight underneath each one of these holes and on the top of our brick. Now, the last thing I want to do to finish this off is add a little bit more random texture in there so it doesn't look so bland. Because right now it looks pretty fake. So the way we're going to fix that is just by adding some random texturing, by adding dots, circles, all kinds of different things in there, lines, but that's just going to help break it up so it looks more realistic and has a lot more texture to it. Alright, great. That brings us to the end of this lecture. So in this lecture, we learned how to create a realistic brick texture for our drawings. So just remember that you want to make sure that you use reference when you're creating texture, and also remember that there are 3 parts to your texture. There is the core shadow, the mid-tone shadow, and the highlight. So incorporate these 3 values and you will always get a realistic looking texture if you do. Thanks for watching this lecture, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one where we're going to create some wood texture.